Добар ден, го гледате неделното интервју на Радио Слободна Европа. Наш денешен гостин е амбасадорот на Словенија во земјава Милан Предан. Господине Предан, Советот за општи работи на Европската Унија повика на што е можно побрзо одобрување на преговарачката рамка за Северна Македонија и Албанија. И покрај оптимизмот во Брисел, ова се доживува како уште еден неуспех за македонските евроинтеграции. Со ова се нарушили дополнително кредибилитетот на Европската Унија, а во исто време ќе се зголемили и евроскептицизмот?
Well, I would start with a more positive side of the recent meetings in Brussels. The enlargement conclusions were adopted. When you can recall that last year those conclusions were not adopted because there was no consensus among all EU member states. This time this has happened, which means that the enlargement process, so to say, is still alive. Now, I think the second positive side of the recent meetings of General Affairs Council is the opening of a new chapter in negotiations with Serbia. You know that for almost 2 years, neither Serbia, neither Montenegro has opened any chapters. So now they have opened cluster 4. This is Green Agenda. And I think this also somehow is a signal that the enlargement process, the negotiation process is moving forward. Now, we are fully aware that there were great expectations here in this country that something positive can happen also as regards the beginning of negotiations with North Macedonia. Now, you remember when we had our interview at the beginning of our presidency, I was saying that we cannot promise any political miracles because we were already aware that the reality is not really working in favor of our endeavors to bring this process to a successful end. But we have promised that we will work hard on this issue, and I think we kept this promise. Slovenia, I believe, okay, others are going maybe to have even a more objective evaluation of our presidency. But I think we have really done everything what we could in this current situation to push these things forward. But as said, the circumstances were not really in favor. We had in favor of finding a very fast solution. We had practically throughout the 6 months of our presidency in both countries some sort of a pre-election or election mode. We didn't have a strong political government in Sofia. We had local elections here in North Macedonia, which did not really make the current government politically stronger. Just the opposite. And if you want to come to a compromise on such demanding issues, you need strong governments on both sides. And this was simply not the case. But I believe we have, during our presidency, prepared the ground also for the forthcoming French presidency to push this issue forward. As you know, President Macron already announced that he is willing to convene a conference at the end of their presidency on EU and Western Balkans relations. And we have announcement for the French that they are going to deal with this issue as well. Although, despite the situation that they will have presidential elections in April, but I think they have recognized how important it is to make this enlargement process really viable and keep it alive.
Новиот бугарски премиер Кирил Петков постигна договор со коалиционите партнери во владата за спорот со Скопје кој е сочинат од 9 точки. Колку со ова се продлабочува спорот меѓу двете земји?
Well, I'm not in position to comment the coalition agreement of Bulgarian government. I believe that we should not think about the negative scenarios. I think your country has witnessed already so many negative scenarios in these past years that we should try to think positive about the things. I think there are some positive announcements from the Bulgarian side, which somehow indicate a more pragmatic approach. Okay, we have to see how the things are going to develop, but I think it's very important that this dialogue with the new Bulgarian government starts as soon as possible, because in order to reach agreement on the EU level, we will need a compromise on the bilateral level. Now we have as I already mentioned, quite a little bit unfortunate situation now again. We have a government in Sofia, but we have a situation in this country where we have a prime minister who is about to resign, which means that the whole government is going to resign. We will have a totally new situation. It will take at least 1 month to form a new government. It means that we are again going to lose some time. It would be very good if this would happen over the holidays, that maybe by the end of January the new government here in North Macedonia would be in place. That would certainly help. And I think there's one thing that would very much help as well. I think it's time that North Macedonia finally sends an ambassador to Sofia. I think that had certainly not helped not having an ambassador or strong diplomatic representation in Sofia. Certainly was a reason that maybe the communication was not as it should be. And it should not be just anybody. I think now this country needs a very experienced diplomat there, you know, and which could be in a daily contact with the new government, because this is the only way to come to agreement. And maybe this is only the only way to shorten this time, because the new government, Petko, is talking about 6 months.
Тогаш предолг ли е рокот од 6 месеци кој го постави Петков?
Yes, and well, this is quite a long time. I believe we are all very much interested that would happen sooner. I cannot predict what is going to happen, but I know that if this dialogue is now going to be really intensive on a daily basis, only in this way we can expect a result.
Министерот за надворешни работи Бујар Османи изјави дека за прв пат Бугарија не можела да најде вина во Северна Македонија. Колку одговорноста за неотпочнување на преговорите на Северна Македонија со Европската Унија сега ја сноси Бугарија?
We are all the time talking about the dialogue. For the dialogue, we need the two of them. You know, I think it's not really a relevant question who is now more responsible for reaching an agreement or who is less responsible. Anyway, we are fully aware that this is not going to be an easy task to come to agreement on the very demanding issues. But we see the opportunity for agreement in a different approach, which Prime Minister Petko has announced. That means that we should not just talk about history, because if we look now how the History Commission is working in this past 2 years, there is not much hope that there would be any progress now. And if we refocus the whole dialogue from history, identity, language, to the very practical areas, infrastructure, culture, media, education, I think there we have a chance. If there were going to be good agreements on these areas, then maybe this would probably change the atmosphere. There would be more mutual trust, and then in a situation with a more mutual trust, it is also easier to solve such issues as history, maybe at least talk about those issues in a more relaxed and more friendly atmosphere.
Кога сме кај историјата, Петков изјави дека и треба да се зборува за македонските учебници каде бугарите се опишани како фашисти. Колку е прифатливо за земјите членки на Европската унија да се преиспитува улогата на Бугарија за време на Втората светска војна како услов за започнување на преговори со Европската унија?
Well, I mean, in your question there is already a part of the answer. No, it is clear on which values the EU, the post-war Europe was built. And the revision of the history of the Second World War is certainly not among those values. But on the other hand, I don't have an insight what is written in the textbooks in Bulgaria about Macedonians and what is written in the Macedonian textbooks about Bulgaria. But I assume not everything which is written there is fair. Is treating the neighbor in a fair manner. So I think it would be good to look into those books and to see if we could rebuild this mutual trust with some mutual acceptable solutions. And I would just recall there are other examples in Europe when textbooks and the revision of textbooks was one of the very important parts of the reconciliation between Germany and France after the Second World War. So this is not something that would be new. I know there were always some attempts to do something similar in the Western Balkans, in this region, which were a little bit less successful. But I think this topic of textbooks should not be a political taboo. I mean, this is an issue that should be also talked about. But as I said, we are talking about textbooks on both sides, not just on one side.
Во заклучоците на Советот за општи работи на Европската унија се потврдуваат и наводите од извештајот на Европската комисија за напредокот на земјава во евроинтеграциите, а посебно акцент се става на реформите во судството. Дали земјава најмногу потфрла во спроведување на овие реформи?
It would be really unfair to say that nothing was done. I think there was certain ideas and it was a progress, which was also stated by the report of the European Commission. After all, you had some very high-level cases with very severe sentences, which have somehow demonstrated the will of the state to really go deeper into this process. But you know better than me that there's much more to do, and in terms of independent judiciary, in terms of fight against corruption, in many areas.
Ви благодарам за издвоеното време.
Благодарам вас.
Тоа беше се во неделното интервју на Радио Слободна Европа. До гледање.